and I am a 35-year-old housewife. What I am going to tell you is a story that happened 3 years ago. At the time, I had a husband, Daniel, who was 5 years younger than me and whom I met through an acquaintance. I had an impression of a younger man being unreliable, but Daniel was a solid man and I felt safe with him. When we were going to greet our marriage, I was worried about the fact that I was 5 years older than Daniel. I knew someone who had married a younger man, and she was told, "You can't take an older woman as your wife, you'll end up being her butt." At first, she was vehemently opposed to the marriage, but she managed to persuade them and finally was allowed to marry him. Since then, she has been having a hard time getting along with her mother-in-law. Because of this, I was a little afraid of meeting my parents-in-law. "Nice to meet you. My name is Emily. I am dating Daniel. Please take care of me." I was so nervous that I greeted my in-laws with a trembling voice.
Well, what a lovely lady you are.
Indeed. She is too good for Daniel.
My parents-in-law listened to my story with smiles on their faces. My mother-in-law especially seemed to have wanted a daughter and was happy that I had come. My parents-in-law are kind and my husband is reliable. I thought at the time that things would turn out well. I had no idea at the time that our marriage would end after only 2 years. 6 months after greeting my parents-in-law, we were able to hold our wedding ceremony without incident. We vowed to work together from now on, even though we were still inexperienced. We had promised each other to do our best, but it was around 1 year after the wedding that Daniel started acting strangely. Daniel's job is in sales at a major company, and although his work was busy to begin with, the number of days he went back home after working overtime has increased more than before. When we first got married, he used to come home once a month after drink, but recently he has been coming home twice a week after drink.
Boo, I'm home.
It was 2300 hours at midnight when he came home that day. He came home loudly even though it was so late. "Hey, what time do you think it is? You're disturbing the neighbors, aren't you? Be quiet." Daniel didn't like the cold way I spoke to him, but he became unfaithful and said, "Shut up. I just got home from work, and you can't even say thank you or something like that. You really aren't cute, are you? Why did I marry such a woman? What?" I couldn't hide my surprise when he said that line as if he was going to spit it out. Daniel took a shower and fell asleep without saying anything. Recently, we have been having this kind of exchange, and I don't remember having a proper conversation with him. We used to go out together on our days off, but I don't remember us doing so for many months now. We don't have a child yet, and I would like to go somewhere together if we could. I told him so, but he said, "Shut up. I'm tired. You can go shopping by yourself. You're not a child." That was what he said, and I was always lonely, as if to distract myself from such loneliness. I have recently been going to a certain cafe more and more often. The cafe is a little off the main street and is like a hideaway. It is a very cute cafe with antique furniture and sundries, and it is my favorite place. The customers inside seem to be more individual customers than couples.
Welcome. What can I get for you today?
The affable master asked me about the menu as usual, and I said, "Well, I'll have an iced cafe latte and tiramisu." I placed my order and he said, "Certainly." He answered with a smile as usual. This cafe brews coffee one by one using a siphon after receiving the order. It takes a lot of time and effort, but the aroma and taste are so good that the waiting time is not a bother. While waiting, I inhaled the aroma of coffee with all my lungs and waited in anticipation. Then, a classy-looking woman, who had recently joined me at this store, came to sit down next to me.
"Hello, it's hot again today, isn't it?"
Madison ordered the same iced cafe latte and tiramisu as I did. Madison is a designer, and her clothes and accessories are really stylish. I would love to dress like this for once. For me, Madison is someone I admire.
"You often looks downcast lately. I wonder if something is wrong."
She could tell that I was depressed, and I tried to correct her, but honestly, I wanted someone to hear how I was feeling. That's what I was thinking. So tell you the truth, I have not been getting along with my husband lately. I can't even have a proper conversation with him. I let out my true feelings. But Madison listened to me earnestly to the end of my story. "Madison, I'm sorry for making you listen to such a trivial story." I felt much calmer now that I had told Madison everything. After that, we made small talk as usual and went home. "I'm home, huh?" When I opened the front door, I found a pair of shoes of a woman I did not know, except for Daniel's. No way, was there a woman inside? With my heart racing, I went to the living room, but the two of them were not there. Where in the world were they? Then I heard voices coming from the bedroom, so I quietly went there without making a sound and found Daniel and a woman I didn't know together. What are you doing? I suddenly came into the bedroom, and both of them were startled and made crazy noises.
Emily, why are you here? I thought you were going out.
I was out, okay, but my errands were done, so I came home. I glared at the woman on the bed, gathered up her scattered clothes, and said, "SHHH, excuse me." With that, she left the room in a hurry. My husband was about to follow her, so I rushed to still him. "Can you explain to me what's going on?" When I asked my husband for an explanation, he became flustered and said, "I'm not going to make excuses. It is what it is." My husband did not seem at all offended by the fact that he had cheated on me. This angered me even more, and I was very hard on him. "You are crazy to bring a woman into our house just because I was out. You need to leave that woman right now." I cried and tried to persuade my husband to leave that woman.
What kind of nonsense are you talking? I'm not going to leave her. You're the one who's going to leave.
After saying this, my husband pulled out a drawer and held out a filled-out divorce form to me.
I'm not sure I can do this with you. That's why I want a divorce.
I was surprised to be suddenly confronted with divorce papers, but to my surprise, Daniel wanted me to leave this house right now. And when he said that to me, my eyes went completely black. Wait a minute, let's calm down a little. For now, I want to talk things over with you. I was not convinced that he would divorce me without discussing it, so I tried to persuade him that we could somehow discuss it. However, Daniel's will to divorce was firm, and he asked, "When are you going to leave?" I ran out of the house crying and went to someone's place. That certain person was Madison's place. I had heard about the apartment she lived in before, so I rang the intercom, knowing it would be rude.
What's up, Emily? What's wrong? You came with such red eyes.
Madison stung something by the way she looked at me. She welcomed me kindly despite my sudden arrival. Madison offered me warm tea and cookies.
I don't know what happened, but for now, just drink the tea and calm down.
The tea was delicious, and as I drank it, I began to feel calmer. I told her everything that had happened at home just a few minutes ago.
That was really hard, wasn't it? Did you take any pictures of the other person or anything?
So I was told, and I showed the video I had taken to Madison.
What? Wait a minute.
Suddenly, she raised her voice as if she was surprised. She went straight to show that smartphone to her husband, who was in another room. I did not know what was going on, so I just waited in a daze for Madison to come back. When Madison came back, she appeared in front of me with her husband and said, "Don't worry, Emily, we have an idea." Her husband nodded his head and told me not to worry. They told me I could stay here for the rest of the day, so I spent the night at Madison's house. The next morning, I called my mother-in-law and mother and told them the details of yesterday's conversation. As for my mother-in-law, she apologized incessantly to me, and as for my mother, she kindly told me that I could come back to my parents' house. I knew that I couldn't start over with Daniel anyway, so I went home to pick up the bare minimum of my belongings. When I opened the door, Daniel came to me in a panic, but he was crying so hard.
Emily, please forgive me. I'm so sorry.
I had no idea what he was talking about, and seeing Daniel just sobbing, I couldn't help but feel cool down.
Please, don't leave me. That was just for fun.
When I listened to the story, I found that many things had happened that I didn't know about. Actually, Madison's husband was the president of Daniel's company. Madison's husband hates people who cheat on their wives, and when he found out that employees had cheated on each other in the past, he had them demoted or transferred. Apparently, the person with whom Daniel was having an affair was the president's secretary. This secretary was rumored to be involved with several employees, not just Daniel. So naturally, she was demoted and transferred to a regional office because of this incident. But before that, she submitted her resignation today and left. Naturally, Daniel was also decided to be transferred, but the place is quite far away, and he will have to move out of the apartment he is living in now. Daniel had worked hard all his life to get his dream job at the head office, and he had just finally gotten it. But to be transferred because of something like this is a shame. Moreover, this was not the only misfortune that befell Daniel. After I told my mother-in-law about Daniel, my father-in-law called him. Originally, Daniel is the eldest son and can inherit the house and property. but my parents-in-law said that they would not give any inheritance to Daniel, but would donate it to an organization that operates a children's cafeteria. If he had inherited the estate normally without any problems, he would have received a considerable amount of money, but it's really a waste to have it all turned out because of something like this. Knowing this, Daniel wants me to get back together with him, so he is now coming on to me, but I am not that dumb. Of course I can't forgive him for what happened this time, so I told him, no matter what you say, I can't forgive you for what happened yesterday. I leave everything else to my lawyer. Hearing the word lawyer, Daniel became even more upset. His face was already a mess of tears.
I beg you, Emily, please calm down. We can still start over, you and I. I promise I will never see her again, so please don't divorce me.
There was no way I would say, yes, okay, to such a convenient thing. I'm going to charge you alimony for this incident. I'll do whatever it takes to get you to pay it, so please do so with that in mind. After saying that, I left the house with the bare minimum of my belongings. Until the very last minute before I left, Daniel kept saying that he didn't want me to divorce him and that we should talk about it. But I ignored all of that and left the apartment. When I arrived at my parents' house, what was waiting for me was the kind smile of my parents. When I saw my parents' faces, I suddenly started to cry. I thought I was going to reassure my parents after getting married, but I had no idea that I was going to cause them trouble again by coming back. I'm so sorry, Mom and Dad, for causing you all this trouble. I apologized to my parents in tears, and they said, there's nothing to worry about. You just didn't have a chance to be together.
Maybe someday, next time, you will meet someone suitable for yourself.
They encouraged me in their own way. A few days later, I received a call from my mother-in-law, who told me that Daniel had come to my parents-in-law asking about the alimony. Actually, Daniel had borrowed money without telling me. The amount is about $100,000, and he can't pay the alimony because he's busy with the monthly repayments. He begged them to make the payment to me on his behalf. However, it seems that my parents-in-law, knowing what had happened, did not help him, no matter how much he was their own son.
Enough. Don't you feel any shame in doing this?
Yes. It's disgraceful to be unfaithful. I don't want to help this guy. It's your own fault, so you're on your own.
It's really disgraceful for a grown man to ask to his parents over something like this. Hearing my mother-in-law's story, I was really glad that I had broken up with Daniel. Later that day, I went to see a lawyer to discuss about the alimony. It seems that Daniel is reluctant to pay alimony, and he says that he will never agree to divorce because he can still start over with me. In a sense, he has a very strong mentality to think that he can still start over at this stage. I even envied him a little. However, I also couldn't stand the fact that this matter was being dragged out indefinitely. When I talked to my mother-in-law about it, she told me that my parents-in-law came along with Daniel to the next meeting. Daniel was adamant that he would not get a divorce, but my parents-in-law gave a shout to him. The parents and Daniel had a dispute in the lawyer's office, but in the end, Daniel was persuaded by my parents-in-law and reluctantly gave his divorce decree. I didn't think it would take this long to get divorced, but when it was over, I exclaimed, "It's finally over!" After the divorce was finalized, I was able to confirm that the full amount of alimony had been transferred to my account. My parents also changed their phone number and moved to a secure apartment, just in case. After that, I continued to go to that cafe as usual, where I met Madison for the first time in a long while. According to Madison's story, it turned out that Daniel had misappropriated business trip expenses by falsely claiming that he was on a business trip. Not only did he have an affair, but he was also sued by the company and had to pay for that as well. Mary, the woman with whom he had been having an affair, had disappeared and could not be contacted. So in the end, Daniel alone had to pay the alimony. The amount of money that Daniel paid was quite large when combined with the fee for the affair. Since Daniel took a pay cut, he will probably have a hard time paying it from now on. Well, if he had not cheated on me, he would not have had to pay such a large amount of money, so it can only be said that he deserved it. By the way, I heard that most of the population in the place where Daniel was sent is elderly people. The area has a lot of elderly people, so if Daniel goes there, he is sure to be admired for being cute. In a way, it's good that he is popular. I presented Madison and her husband with a luxury hotel room as a gift to thank them for their kindness. I had no idea that the regular I met at the cafe was the wife of my ex-husband's company president. Madison and I still keep in touch with each other, and she introduced me to a certain male employee for dinner. Madison told me proudly, "The couples I introduce have a very high probability of getting married, you know? Well, whether we get together or not, if I have a chance, I hope I will be happy next time."